Dave Lapham is going to join us in the noon hour. But we got to start with yesterday. We got to start with Derrick Henry being in a fully padded practice for the first time in quite some time. Boys and girls, look pretty good out there. Now, I was watching this take place, and I was watching a lot of the videos that everybody was putting out, and I saw the fact that they pulled two defensive players. Tony Dews, the running back coach, just yanked two defensive players over to the running back drills and said, here, you're going to be the battering ram dummies for the running back as we try and get him used to contact yet again. Now, it would be funny to say that you have to get somebody like Derrick Henry used to contact again. But, I mean, what are we going on, like 12 weeks at this point since he's been in a contact situation? Derrick Henry is going to play on Saturday. It's just a matter of how close to 100% can they get this man up to speed. And that was what Mike Vrabel touched on yesterday when he met with the media at St. Thomas Sports Park. Basically what the ramp-up process for number 22 was going to look like. With that being said, Mike Vrabel, Mike is doing his best, as we said yesterday. Mike Vrabel is doing his best to manage expectations. And so when he talked about Derrick Henry yesterday, this is what the Titans head coach had to say.
Well, we'll be in pads today. I think that's a good step. We'll have to have some contact. It's been a while, since he's had, contact. We're going to have to do these things that will come close to replicating what's going to be asked of him in a football game. So, again, we'll have a week of work, and we'll see how he feels and make a decision.
So at this point, it is going to be, they can slow play it all they want. They can try and temper expectations all they want. People are going to lose their minds for Derrick Henry when he takes the field. Now, I mean, all things considered, he looked pretty good. And, I came away from that feeling kind of bad for somebody like Jayon Brown, who has basically been reduced to a tackling dummy, who was a healthy scratch against the Houston Texans, and now he's out there helping Derrick Henry go through running back drills to make sure that he's used to contact. 615-737-1045. You can jump in on the conversation. So he's still not been activated, which is the question that a lot of you have been asking. He has still basically 2 weeks left for them to be able to activate him before they have to put him on the active roster. Is it going to take the full 2 weeks? No. Because 2 weeks of their season at this point in the year, that's not guaranteed. He's not counting against the team's 53-man roster until such time as he is activated off of injured reserve. They will need to activate him at the latest by 3 p.m. Central Time on Friday for him to be eligible to play in this game. And also of note, talking about Titans practice, they'll be back on the field later today. You're going to hear from Ryan Tannehill later on in the show. Also of note, there was 3 players on the Titans injury report yesterday. 3. I thought it was a misprint when Titans PR sent that to my email yesterday, sent that out to all of us. 3 players. Naquan Jones, who was dealing with a knee injury. Buster Screen, who's dealing with a hammy. By the way, both of those players, full go. The only person who was in any kind of a limited capacity for the Tennessee Titans on the practice field yesterday was Tier Tart, who's missed a significant amount of time at this point dealing with an ankle injury. It is wild to see something like that, given the rate of injury that this team has experienced all year long. They're getting guys back all over the place. You talk about somebody like Torrey Carter, the fullback who was moved from the designated for return from IR list on Monday. He's in that same kind of window that Derrick Henry, actually he's a week behind Derrick Henry as far as designated to return is concerned, but they're even getting the second fullback on the roster back and healthy. This is going to be, and I looked at the Bengals injury report as well. They don't look like they're in very bad shape outside of the players who we know they're going to be without, guys like Larry Ogunjobi, who we talked about yesterday. And it was interesting to see. I don't know if this was out by the time we were still on the air yesterday. But Trey Hendrickson, who was ruled out of that Saturday wildcard game against the Raiders with a concussion, he was a limited participant in practice. If they don't have Trey Hendrickson, they're banged, kids. It's a good defense that needs its best player, and Trey Hendrickson, by a mile, is the best player on this rebuilt Bengals defense. We're going to go through the entirety, basically, of the Bengals roster and how they've kind of gotten to this point with Dave Lapham later in the show. You're going to enjoy that conversation a lot. Dave's a stud. And we're also going to talk about Ryan Tannehill. Basically, off our conversation yesterday about which Titans player is under the most pressure to perform against the Bengals. For me, that player is Ryan Tannehill. He's got a lot to prove to people. There's going to be a narrative set about Ryan Tannehill regardless of Saturday's outcome, whether they win or whether they lose. There's going to be a narrative surrounding that quarterback, whether he wants to deal with it or not. Ryan Tannehill and the conversation about him and Joe Burrow, is it going to be necessary for him to outduel one of the hottest rookie quarterbacks, or excuse me, not rookie, second-year quarterbacks, one of the hottest quarterbacks in the sport at this point? It's a lot to ask of Ryan Tannehill, but this is the time that it needs to be asked. The more that I go through this, the more that I think, I don't know necessarily how to feel about this game. And we went through the whole thing to start the show yesterday, and this is probably the best possible, it is the best possible opponent for the Titans to play. They're bringing Derrick Henry back at the right time against a team who is suffering along the defensive line. It's a perfect situation for an offensive line coming off a bye week and a running back who, prides himself on just being able to run through your face mask over and over and over again. But for Ryan Tannehill, the situation is different. If called upon, do you trust him to win you a game when you're having to attempt 40, 45, 50 passes? What has gone wrong if you've been so taken out of your game plan that would allow that? Because I did an interview yesterday and I was asked that question. Do I trust Ryan Tannehill to win a game like that if they're just going to have to get into a straight-up shootout against one of the most explosive offenses in football? And the question is an interesting one because, one, if they're attempting 40-plus passes in a game, something terrible has happened. Either they're turning the ball over and it's led to a situation where they're trailing and they're having to chase. They've been taken out of their game plan. It's tough to take them out of their game plan. They just want to run the ball over and over and over again, run the damn ball. Do I trust him in that situation? I think it's an interesting talking point. We'll spend more time on that later on. And in fact, we'll do that coming up next. What is your level of trust in this quarterback right now? I think that he's got the most individual pressure of any player on that football field on him. You're going to hear from Ryan Tannehill coming up next. We'll take your phone calls as well. 615-737-1045. Don't forget Jerrell Casey at 11 o'clock. We got the dumbest thing in sports this week coming up later in the show as well. Stick around. I'm Buck Reising. It's 1045 The Zone. Cincinnati Bengals, a radio analyst for, I think, something like 40 years. He's going to join us as well. But we're going to be live out at Scoreboard Bar and Grill tomorrow and on Friday. By the way, Will Compton, who has been ducking us since he got another NFL job. Not really. It's, the meeting times conflicted with when we do the radio show while he was out in Vegas. But now he is out of the playoffs. He is back in training or whatever. And Will is going to come and do the show live with us from Scoreboard Bar and Grill tomorrow. So we hope that you guys will come hang out with us as well. We got Mina Kimes on tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun. Playoff football, by the way, it's here. And the best place to watch it is Scoreboard Bar and Grill. They got live music, football with sound, golf, oysters, baked pineapple, teriyaki, or if you dig them, they got them raw. Scoreboard, playoffs, killer music, food, fun, and booze. Scoreboard Bar and Grill is where we'll be doing the show live from tomorrow. So what is your level of trust in Ryan Tannehill? Now, I bring this up based off the conversation that we had on the radio show yesterday, right? He's the most, in my opinion, he's the player with the most individual pressure on him. And then I was watching Get Up on ESPN this morning, and Mike Greenberg, they have any number of different lists and rankings every morning on Get Up. And, for as much as that stuff drives me crazy, it plays. Got my attention. Because Greenberg ranked his confidence in the quarterbacks remaining in the playoffs. So there's 8 quarterbacks remaining. Greeny's got his top 5. Number 1, Tom Brady. Number 2, Josh Allen. Over number 3, Aaron Rodgers. And number 4, Patrick Mahomes. And number 5 is Joe Burrow, which is pretty interesting. Jimmy Garoppolo has played in a Super Bowl. Ryan Tannehill has reached an AFC title game. Matt Stafford, there are some questionable interceptions in there, but I would argue that Matt Stafford is a better player at the quarterback position than Joe Burrow is right now, even as Burrow is hugely promising in his career. But Ryan Tannehill is nowhere to be found anytime you put one of these general polls out there about, all right, of the quarterbacks remaining, given that there's only 8 left, where does Ryan Tannehill stack up for you? 615-737-1045. Do you trust this quarterback if they have to get into a different kind of game that takes the Tennessee Titans a bit out of their game plan? Because against the Bengals, who can score, it's entirely possible that will be the case. Let's go to Brian, who's in Madison, Tennessee, who wants to weigh in. What's up, Brian?
Hey, what's going on? Good morning. Good morning.
What's happening, buddy? What you got for me?
My thing on Tannehill, no, he's not elite, and yes, he's under a lot of pressure. And I've been one of Tannehill's biggest critics, number-wise. But if Ryan Tannehill is listening, this is your chance. No pressure, but this is your chance to show the world that you can be elite by using your legs. So in the past, we've always had good running quarterbacks. Vince Young, Mariota, Air McNair. You're that same caliber of athlete. So if you want to help the Titans win this game, you don't have to prove to the world that you're a pocket passer. If it ain't there, tuck it and go. You're athletic enough to get some yards, to get some good first downs, some third and longs, first downs with your legs. Use your legs, and let's win. That's all I got.
Hey, thanks very much for the call, Brian. 615-737-1045. You can jump in. Mobility is a big part of his game. When you look at Ryan Tannehill and what he's able to do with his legs, it's not necessarily about, like, outright rushing production. There's not going to be a situation where, like with Josh Allen, who several times this season has led his team in rushing, or Lamar Jackson, or Kyler Murray has this ability. Like, Ryan Tannehill is I would say possesses, is it even above average mobility anymore? Lucas, you're nodding your head at me, because I'm thinking quarterback has evolved so much. Like, how many Tom Brady statues in the pocket do you see out there in the NFL? Stafford is another one of these guys. Rodgers can move a little bit, even though he's getting kind of older. Burrow is, not even to do the white quarterback thing, but Joe Burrow is legitimately sneaky athletic.
Yeah. But I think above average mobility, Ryan Tannehill most certainly would fall into that category. Also his history personally as an athlete, as a wide receiver, I think when you look at the average quarterback mobility, I mean, who would you put in that frame? Aaron Rodgers? I mean, he's smart. He knows how to use his legs, but, he's not going to outrun an outside linebacker to the sideline majority of the time.
What the caller brings up is a good point, though. 7 rushing touchdowns, again, back-to-back seasons for Ryan Tannehill. 7. That's 14th in the league among not just quarterbacks. That's 14th among qualified rushers, like running backs. Deebo Samuel, who's broke the NFL record for most rushing touchdowns by a wide receiver. Ryan Tannehill has 7. It's a big part of what they're able to do offensively, and it's a great asset in their arsenal. I would fully expect that to be, it's regularly a part of the game plan. They always have that weapon at their disposal, and if the play breaks down, I do trust Ryan Tannehill to make the right decision with his legs. Now, you know what stresses me out about Ryan Tannehill? Ryan Tannehill is the most stressful runner in the NFL at the quarterback position, I'm convinced. Because I don't know why he doesn't slide. It's so perplexing to me. He's an athlete. He should be able to slide. He should be able to do this. And yet he refuses. Like, I admire if it's, I'm just going to try and get that extra yard. That 1 yard will make all the difference in the world. And he doesn't get outright blowed up, but every time he takes off, and I'm just sitting there in the press box, like my fists get tight because I'm like, slide, you idiot, slide. Why won't you get down? He just won't do it. I trust him. Here's what I'll say, because I tell you guys all the time, don't trust anything like outright implicitly, right? You're discerning. You're able to make your own decisions. Now, there's a whole different scenario if you're talking about societally, and we can get into things about people making their own decisions in ways that are definitely questionable. But for the purposes of football, okay? Don't trust anything implicitly. Let's stick to sports. Ryan Tannehill, I trust him as the Titans quarterback if he is adequately protected. I do. I think that this player is more than capable of elevating the rest of the offense around him from a skill position standpoint if he is adequately protected by the offensive line that's in front of him. Taylor Lewan, Roger Saffold, and Ben Jones, when they're healthy and out there together, I think they've been studs. A lot of you, I know, heard Roger Saffold on with 3HL yesterday as they do their what is it? Football Feast? Is that the name of the feature at Buffalo Wild Wings? They go to different Buffalo Wild Wings. I think it's called Football Feast. Anyway, Roger Saffold goes out there with them a lot, and you could tell how much better Roger felt talking about the injuries that he's dealing with, how much better the offensive line feels about their chemistry. And from my standpoint, you don't want to add a bunch of qualifiers, because the question is, do you trust him or not? And I would say to you, I do. But I trust him even more if the protection is even just adequate. Because what I've seen from Ryan Tannehill when he has enough time, and even when he doesn't, like, for example, 3rd and 5 against the Houston Texans, when I believe Mike Keith called him buried.
Texans act as if they might blitz. Tannehill in the gun. Here comes pressure. Tannehill, he's buried. He gets away. He rolls to his right. He throws downfield. Westbrook-Akita all alone. 45-40, and he's run out of bounds in the 36-yard line. Murray got him. What a play by Tannehill. He was dead to rights.
Even when the protection's not good, he's good when the play breaks down. And we had Mike Keith on the radio show after that Texans game, and what Mike said was it was McNair-esque. Mike Keith, who's been a part of every Titans game since the franchise came here. Mike Keith, who has seen the highs and the lows of Steve McNair as the Tennessee Titans quarterback. Ryan Tannehill is without question, and there's not like a long list of great names at the quarterback position outside of Ryan Tannehill and Steve McNair that have been able to elevate this franchise in that way. But there's no question to me that Ryan Tannehill is certainly the best Titans quarterback since Steve McNair. And how his legacy as the quarterback of this franchise will be remembered will be very much defined by this coming playoff maybe run or these playoff appearances. We'll see, plural. We don't know. There will be a narrative formed around Ryan Tannehill based on this postseason. And I'm curious to know how many Titans fans are willing to have that conversation about, all right, at what point do you talk about him being maybe not outright better than Steve McNair all around, but when it comes to the playing of the quarterback position, there's a lot of things that you see from Tannehill that even McNair wasn't capable of doing. 615-737-1045. Let's go to Jason in Murfreesboro, who's up next. Hello, Jason.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
We're doing well. Appreciate the call.
While I'm sitting here working in the rain, I'm sitting here thinking about I don't know what the weather's supposed to be like in the forecast and how this field's going to be played on Saturday. Like, are we going to have a good, solid field, or are there going to be a lot of slipping and sliding because it's going to be cold for the next few days? And
yeah, there's no question.
All I see is a lot of rushing up in between the tackles. You don't want to do a lot of cut moves because you're going to slip and fall. Or you try to do a pass like a slant or something. I see a lot of balls to the sideline or maybe long passes downfield.
It's a good point, Jason. I appreciate the call and make sure you try and stay dry as best you can. I know the weather's not great out there, but we appreciate the call and we appreciate you listening while you work. So I'm looking at the Weather Channel right now at it's just weather.com. Saturday at this point, a high of 24. So it's going to be brisk. Low of 17. Remember, that's a 3:30 Central Time kick. Now, the weather is supposed to be mostly sunny, and as we sit here on Wednesday, our precipitation is expected to be, 50% chance of snow right now, accumulations of less than 1 inch. There's a 15% chance of precipitation on Thursday, down to 7 on Friday when it's supposed to be sunny with a high of 20, and a 7% chance of precipitation on Saturday. Field's in as good a shape as it could possibly be. Again, not just an important bye week off for the players, but the playing surface at Nissan Stadium needed some much needed maintenance. That has been the case. Now, they're going to do everything they can to protect it as it's an outdoor grass field. So they're going to make sure that all of the things that need to be done are in as best possible position to make sure that they've got that. Now, he brought up routes like outbreaking routes. That's not really what the Titans offense is, right? Ryan Tannehill throwing outside the numbers, that's not, of all the places where you kind of look at the strengths and weaknesses of his game, throwing outside the numbers isn't something exactly that he does all that well. And really, they don't do it that often. What they do is it's a ton of in-breaking routes, whether it's off-play action, whether you're talking about quick slants, all these things. And, of course, running the ball inside the tackles, off tackles, things of that nature. Those are always going to be staples of the Titans' running game. And I'm not saying that they don't have outbreaking route concepts within their offense. I'm just saying it's not a big part of what they like to do if they're playing their game the way that they want to play it. Now, they may not have a choice. But at this point, I'm looking at this and saying, yeah, I think as good of field conditions as humanly possible. It's going to be very cold, and they're giving away blankets basically for the first 20,000 fans who get into the stadium on Saturday ahead of this game. By the way, we're going to have a lot of pregame coverage. We're going to be outside of Nissan Stadium on the Lee Company Countdown to Kickoff as we are before every home game, so I'm looking forward to being out there myself and then going into Nissan Stadium and seeing how this game ends up playing out. But make sure you are dressed appropriately because it is going to be quite frigid on Saturday. We haven't heard from RJ in Phoenix in quite some time. Where you been hiding?
Good morning. How you doing, man?
I'm good. What's up, buddy?
Okay, so I am going to attempt to get racked and played off all in one call.
All right.
I'm going to make it quick. What quarterback do I trust that's left in the playoffs? Okay, well, Jimmy Garoppolo, we beat him. Matthew Stafford, we beat him. The dude in Buffalo, we beat him. The dude in Kansas City, we beat him. Cincinnati, we finna beat them this weekend. So that only leaves Tom Brady, who's the GOAT, and Aaron Rodgers. And Tannehill ain't better than Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, so I rank him third. Okay, that takes care of that. Everybody talking about they want national attention. Okay, first of all, why do you want to listen to somebody who don't watch the team? You got the best information through the Buck Reising show on 104.5.
Thank
you. Feel me? And when they show the seeding, when they show the bracket, Tennessee is always number one. That's all the national attention you need. Soak it up. Next week, when Kansas City plays Buffalo, the announcer's going to have to say, because it's part of the narrative, no matter who wins, because Tennessee plays first, no matter who wins between Kansas City and Buffalo, Tennessee has already beat both of them. That's all the national attention you need. Go on and rack me.
Go and give it to him. He can ask for it. That's fine. RJ in Phoenix with the walk-off.
He didn't get the Oscars music, but he got the rack.
He got close.
Close. Finger was on the trigger.
We were teetering at the 90-second mark.
I think I'm going to set it back to 60.
60?
Yeah.
Well, you're putting people on an even shorter shot clock.
60 seconds.
60 seconds.
90 feels like a lot.
I think a minute of opinion is appropriate. So if you go longer than 60 seconds, if you're unfamiliar with this new bit that Lucas is trying to pull off behind the scenes, if you start to hear music, it means you've gone over 60 seconds. It's the Oscars music. It means that we're playing you off and Lucas is then going to fade you down because, we love when you guys call in, but we do get a lot of calls, so we want to make sure that we're giving everybody adequate time. To his point about national media and coverage that the Titans get, I've got a really, really good article that I was reading this morning. We'll spend some more time on it in the noon hour about the Titans, about the AFC and the market sizes of the 4 teams left on this side of the bracket. It's going to surprise you. You're going to want to make sure that you hear that because I think it's going to play into a lot of that media discussion, that media narrative that Titans fans, whether I think it's fair for them to get hung up on it because people don't talk about them. And that's fine. Like, I don't care. I'm going to talk about it. Lucas, I'm looking at the grid. Do I have a segment that's not Titans today? I don't. I mean, we got dumbest thing in sports, and my dumbest thing in sports isn't Titans related. But other than that, I'm talking Tennessee Titans for 3 hours. 104.5 The Zone is on from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. I've got a streaming show for A to Z Sports that I do Sunday through Thursday night, and I've done 3 straight Titans shows. I got a podcast with Greg Cosell. I'm not just talking about the stuff that I do. But locally, you got what you need here. So the clamoring, I hate that it's such a focal point because people like me are sitting here looking at this like I'm literally doing 75 shows a week to get people the kind of content that they want, and all I got to hear about is they don't talk about us on First 10 while they're talking about Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady. Would you rather have Rodgers or Brady? That's the topic on First Take right now, which is fine. It's a good conversation. More people are going to be interested in it. But other than that, I mean, I'm throwing my hands up in the air. What more do you want? I'm trying. Back to the Tannehill conversation. We go to Joey in Cross Plains, who's up next on 104.5 The Zone. Good morning, Joey.
Good morning, Buck. So I do trust Tannehill.
Yes.
Probably 80%.
Okay.
And while I was on hold, I was thinking about it. And I would put McNair ahead of him right now because McNair did lead us to a Super Bowl.
Of course. There is no question.
Exactly. But if Tannehill leads us to a Super Bowl, or when he leads us to a Super Bowl this year and we win it, I would put Tannehill ahead of McNair because of that, because of what Tannehill has done this year, in the second time, to the AFC and then, and into the Super Bowl. But when we win the Super Bowl, I would put Tannehill above McNair.
And I think, Joey, a lot of people are going to disagree with that. Here's the thing about Steve McNair, because I agree with you, Joey. I think that if Ryan Tannehill gets you to a Super Bowl, you can start to have that conversation. Until another Titans quarterback does that, Steve McNair remains at the top of the mountain as far as Titans quarterbacks are concerned. He's on the Nashville, and even if Ryan Tannehill or whomever, quarterbacks in years to come, find ways to help this franchise advance to great heights in the playoffs, Steve McNair is always going to be Titans QB1. He's on the Nashville God, I don't want to do a Mount Rushmore. I don't. But
you almost said it. You were so close.
Well, listen, I'm still leading. We haven't talked about this since the summer, but I'm still leading the campaign to do away with those god-awful pixie sticks. You know what I'm talking about over there off 8th Avenue, downtown, right by the Music City Center. I'm still trying. I'm actively leading the campaign to do away with the giant pixie sticks that looks like somebody just painted spare telephone poles that they had. I'm actively advocating for a Steve McNair Pecorine statue to be placed in that spot instead of that atrocity that somebody is trying to convince me and has been trying to convince me for years at this point that is art. I would strongly contest that notion. Give me a legitimate Nashville sports like statue, sculpture, whatever, or even like music. Just get the pixie sticks the hell out of here. I could do a whole show on the godforsaken pixie sticks. We'll get more of your phone calls on this coming up next. What is your level of trust in Ryan Tannehill? And what quarterbacks currently in the postseason, you look at the 8 teams remaining, including the Titans, how many of those 8 would you take over Ryan Tannehill? I think that's an interesting conversation. We'll talk about it coming up next. Jerrell Casey going to join us in about 20 minutes from now. Stick around. It's 104.5 The Zone. Now, if you listen to this show regularly, one, thank you. We appreciate that. Two, you realize what a silly and largely stupid show that we do. For example, I was asked about the weather, the forecast for Saturday at Nissan Stadium. And I pulled up the Weather Channel. Trusty, reliable Weather Channel, weather.com. Doesn't get more reliable than that. And I gave you the forecast for Nashville, Tennessee, or so I thought. Except somebody has tweeted us. In fact, it was Titantown615 tweeted us saying, check your location, bud. It's not our forecast. And you know what? He was right. My Weather Channel app was still set to Pittsburgh from a couple of weeks ago. Thank you for all of your. You didn't help me either back there.
No,
you didn't do anything to bail me out of that. Me out here giving people misinformation and fake news. This is the forecast, the actual forecast for Middle Tennessee for Nashville and Nissan Stadium, specifically on Saturday, January 22. And I've made sure that my location is correct. A high of 38, a low of 24, partly cloudy, and a 4% chance of precipitation. So about a 17-degree difference in the temperature at Nissan Stadium, which would make a big difference if you're attending. So my apologies for that. Thank you very much, Titantown615, for making me check my location on the Weather Channel. How often do you do that? I mean, I don't know if I'm in this phase of my life where I'm starting to be more like my parents. Like I watch the Weather Channel. Like I never used to watch the Weather Channel. I now care about the weather on a day-to-day basis. This is clearly and obviously the aging process for me. But like I've done that several times where I'm looking at my forecast and because I travel for Titans games, there's like any number of nine different cities that have been saved in my weather forecast that I've botched.
Is it just the regular weather app on your iPhone?
No, the regular weather app on the iPhone cannot be
terrible.
It's just trash. It's just complete and total trash. That thing is as unreliable as I am reading the weather.
It says it's 90 degrees right now. That doesn't sound right.
What?
No, it doesn't say that. It's 50.
Good one, Lucas. Let's back to the phones. Antoine is in Nashville up next on his level of trust in Ryan Tannehill. What of the 8 quarterbacks remaining, this is the question that we're asking you, how many would you take over the Titans QB? Antoine in Nashville is next. Hello.
Bug, what up?
Well, you know.
Not too much, Bug. This is, out of all the players, I'm going to stick with my guy, Tannehill.
Out of every quarterback, Antoine, every quarterback that's left.
Out of every quarterback that's left, I'm going to stick with Tannehill.
Wow.
That's what's been that's what's been working for us. And as far as the caller saying that we ain't beat Tom Brady, now they forget that we beat that we ended Tom Brady's dynasty in New England. So if there's one quarterback out there that's afraid of the Titans, it's gonna be Tom Brady, and he will always remember the Titans.
You're not wrong. That was a defining moment in Tom Brady's career.
It was, and like I say, if there's one team that he does fear, it is the Tennessee Titans. And with all of his guys back, the offensive line back healthy, he got his wide receivers, he got the Winter Soldier back. Let me tell you, I don't know about the Oscars music, but the guys are back in town.
Okay. I appreciate what you fade him, Lucas. I thought he was going to put on a show for us. Now, here's what I'll say. I'm not respectfully, and I think Ryan Tannehill's a great quarterback. I don't think that I would take Ryan Tannehill over Aaron Rodgers or over Tom Brady. I wouldn't take him over Patrick Mahomes. Wouldn't take him over Josh Allen. There's 8 quarterbacks left in the field. I would take him over Matt Stafford, Joe Burrow. The experience to me there matters, even though I think Burrow is going to be a stud and is a stud at this point in his career. There are 4 quarterbacks remaining in the postseason, 4 of 8 that I would take over Ryan Tannehill. And I don't think that's a stretch by any sense of the imagination. I think that's quite reasonable. Now, this is an interesting conversation because you remember that Tom Brady was almost a Titan. Now, how close it actually got, it's a matter of some debate. But Tom Brady was being legitimately considered before Ryan Tannehill's contract was extended here as the future, quote unquote, as at 44 years old. By the way, you know Brady is older than every NFC coach remaining in the playoff field. He's 44. The rest of them are like 42. It's disgusting.
Every other NFC coach, right? Besides Bruce Arians.
Well, yeah, Arians is like in his 70s at this point. In the Kangol. But that, to me, is wild. I would not take Ryan Tannehill over those 4 that I mentioned. But the other 3, sign me up. I got Chase in Jacksonville, Florida, who's calling in to talk about Tannehill. Hello, Chase.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing well.
Yeah, so I completely agree with you. I would take him over Joe Burrow, Matt Stafford, and Jimmy Garoppolo, of course. But he's definitely not up there with Tom Brady and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes right now. But we don't need him to be at that level because of the weapons and with how we built the team around him. And he steps up in clutch moments when he needs to, and that's all we really ask of him is to game manage and step up in clutch moments, which a lot of people forget that since he's taken over as a starter, he's been one of the most clutch QBs in the NFL. But that's my point of view on Ryan Tannehill right now. Thank you for letting me talk.
Hey, thanks for the call, Chase. 615-737-1045. It's a football team that's built differently, right? Now, quarterback is important. You've seen how much he has elevated the football team from what it was with Marcus Mariota to what it is now with him as the signal caller. There is no disputing this. Even the most diehard of Mariota fans, and rightfully so, Marcus Mariota was the bridge quarterback, even though he was the second overall pick. It's funny to look at a second overall pick that way, but at this point, it's the case. Ryan Tannehill is an interesting case study in how good does how close to elite, because I really believe there's only, I would say, 3 elite quarterbacks in the NFL. I think the elite term is thrown around too much. Shout out Joe Flacco. But that
on a scale of Tom Brady to Joe Flacco.
I don't want to be mean to Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco, Super Bowl MVP. Well, let me put respect on Joe Flacco's name. But I do think it's an interesting conversation because how great does your quarterback need to be for you to be able to legitimately win a Super Bowl? I don't know what the answer to that question is. Rex Grossman made a Super Bowl. Stop it. You've seen terrible quarterbacks make Super Bowls. Joe Flacco was not outright terrible. He was fine. But he won games basically doing the Carson Wentz offense before the Carson Wentz offense. Pass interference plays down the field. He's just overshooting Torrey, what was the wide receiver's name? Torrey Smith for like 45-yard gains. Offense by defensive pass interference, it's an effective strategy. Worked for Flacco. I mean, the sample size of Trent Dilfer is always brought up. Now, the game has obviously changed, but I think Tannehill is kind of like the baseline for how good does your quarterback need to be before you ultimately need that position to help elevate you toward championship caliber. I believe that to be the case. Now, the lines are loaded. Listen, we got Jurrell Casey coming up next. I want you guys to stay right there or jump in if you want to, 615-737-1045, because we'll continue this conversation. But when we come back, the legend, number 99, Jerrell Casey, joins us. He's the 12th on Saturday, and he's going to be up with us next on 104.5 The Zone.
It is 11:01. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. 24th ranked Tennessee left Nashville with a win over Vanderbilt on Tuesday, a 68-60 final in Memorial Gym as the Vols improved to 12-5. Four different Tennessee players reached double figures. Santiago Vescovi, the leader, with 14 points. Scottie Pippen Jr. put up 18 as Vanderbilt falls to 10-7. That's 9 straight wins for the Vols over Vandy. The Lipscomb Bisons fell to 8-12 with an 86-72 loss to Eastern Kentucky last night. And around college basketball, number 6 Duke went down on Tuesday, 79-78 to Florida State on the road. The Preds scored first again, but gave up 3 straight goals to fall 3-1 to the Vancouver Canucks in Bridgestone Arena. That marks 4 straight losses for Nashville after a 5-game winning streak. Preds are third in the Central Division. The Titans returned to the practice field Tuesday in the lead up to Saturday's kickoff at 3:30 in the divisional round against the Cincinnati Bengals in Nissan Stadium. But what does that mean for running back Derrick Henry, who aims for a return to action this weekend? Titans head coach Mike Vrabel spoke about it with the media yesterday.
We'll be in pads today. I think that's a good step. We'll have to have some contact. It's been a while, since he's had, contact. We're going to have to do these things that will come close to replicating what's going to be asked of him in a football game. So, again, we'll have a week of work and we'll see how he feels and make a decision.
For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
All right, I'm not going to waste a bunch of time to start hour number 2 because we have a fantastic guest. Number 99, Titans legend Jerrell Casey is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. We're so happy to have him as a part of the show today. The 12th Titan at Nissan Stadium ahead of this playoff game between the Titans and the Bengals is here with us right now. What's going on, Jurrell?
What's up? I'm doing good. Can't complain at all, man. Just living life, being blessed.
No question about it. So, when did they approach you about doing this ahead of the playoff game? Because this has got to be a pretty big deal for you, no?
Definitely. It's huge, to definitely just be able to retire. And they're thinking of me to come back and honor them for one of the biggest games for this franchise. Definitely is huge. It was a little bit earlier in the week, last week, and they reached out and asked if I'd love to be the 12th man. They would love to have me. And it definitely was a no-brainer, Definitely couldn't miss this opportunity. Was already planning on coming to the game already off of GP, so it definitely was great to be able to come back and be able to be a 12th man. So that's definitely even bigger.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool, and I know the fans are excited to see you. I mean, this is home playoff games here in Nashville, Tennessee, the last couple of years. That almost sounds like a foreign concept after a while, but this is something for somebody like you, Jurrell. I mean, how proud of you are from the way that this organization has kind of come along for all of the great things that you did while you were here to kind of culminate now as the top seed in the AFC.
I love it. Just the biggest thing, the last few years I've been there, just starting to be able to get the winning records, getting into the playoffs has been big, and these guys have just carried the torch and kept it pushing, and they've done it for the last 2 years, getting to the playoffs and making a run in it. So that's the big thing. These guys are now starting to bring that winning tradition around. Vrabel and John has done a good job building a good core over there, getting some good guys who can come in and buy into the system. As you can see this year, they had over, 90-something people come in and play on their roster?
91.
And being in this position is beautiful. So, those guys are doing some great work over there.
So I know you were at the game in L.A. where the Titans kicked the Rams' ass on Sunday Night Football.
Unreal.
I mean, that game. You talk about what Jeff Simmons has done in his couple of years now that he's been here. Danico Autry, how much he's helped the rest of the defensive line, and Harold. What have you made of your former teammates this season?
Man, they have been some dogs out there, man. It's been beautiful to watch them. I didn't see no young guys who have been there, and Simmons came in, got to play the year with him, and he already showed he was going to be a beast. That was visual from day one. And so to have somebody like that present to come in and step in is it's beautiful to solidify your middle. And then you had here Landry, someone who's been there for a few years with me. I've seen him work. I've seen how he came in as a rook with the right mindset, straight business. A guy who came in very professional, was ready to work, was ready to learn. When you have guys like that that leads your group, it just makes the game that much easier for you to coach and make guys around you to fill in and make plays. And so those guys are doing that, being great leaders for that front four. And as long as they keep carrying that torch, I think Tennessee's going to have a great front and for a long time coming.
Titans legend Jerrell Casey is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Make sure you get there early because Jurrell is the 12th Titan. He's going to be swinging the sword at midfield before this thing gets officially kicked off between Tennessee and the Cincinnati Bengals. So with that being said, Jurrell, I mean, you are somebody who played here, who had a fantastic career here as an interior defensive lineman. What Jeff is doing reminds me, maybe different styles, maybe different traits, but what Jeff is doing here reminds me a lot of how great you were for the Titans defenses while you were playing. And I was shocked, borderline offended on behalf of the city of Nashville that this man was not elected to the Pro Bowl. What did you make of that?
Unreal. I definitely thought he would have been inside the Pro Bowl. But, this is how the game goes when you're a young guy inside in a market that's not as strong. People don't give you that much of a recognition. And, people around the league, you can get the fan votes as he was the number one fan voter, D tackle. But outside of that, the players and the coaches not giving you the recognition yet. He's going to get there. He's definitely built it, leaving his mark. It just reminded me of my first year going into the Pro Bowl, being snubbed and didn't get in and things like that. It's just part of the game. You earn your stripes. You keep building. At the end of the day, this game is not made for just Pro Bowls. You're trying to build a legacy for time coming, and being consistent is going to make him be there for years after years. So you might didn't get this year, but, hey, 10 years from down the line, he'll be a 10-time Pro Bowler. Who knows?
We will certainly see. Titans legend Jerrell Casey is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Jurrell, you bring up the market and playing in Nashville and how that can be, underrated, basically, from a standpoint of the people who decide things like this. There is precious little Titans. We're local, all right? So we talk about, I've got a 3-hour radio show. I'm talking about the Titans for basically 2 hours and 45 minutes today. That's what I got on the docket. But I turn on Sports Center, I don't see Titans talk. We've got friends who come on from the NFL Network. They're talking about what the Dallas Cowboys are doing in the offseason. And I was reading this article today, Jurrell. Nashville's the biggest media market left in the AFC at this point. It's bigger than Kansas City. It's bigger than Cincinnati. And it's bigger than Buffalo, New York. Why are the Titans so disrespected?
Why are we disrespected?
Yes.
Only history tells itself. Only history can tell itself. That's the only reason why. At the end of the day, this game is about winning. You got to get there. You got to be able to prove that you deserve to be there. And, we're starting to lead that mark. We're starting to get there. We're starting to build that. But it's going to take time. And that's what this game is about, being patient, leaving your mark on the game, being consistent. And I think for the last 3 years, Tennessee has been consistent. They're leaving that mark, and it's only going to be time that we're going to start getting that respect after we go and do our thing this year. God's willing.
Jerrell Casey is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. The opponent this weekend, the Cincinnati Bengals, Jurrell, I don't know how much of you or how much of them you have seen, but Joe Burrow is definitely a young stud quarterback. Their offensive line isn't great. Quentin Spain, who played here for a couple years, is a part of that group, but they've definitely struggled as far as protection is concerned. What stands out to you about this matchup?
It's definitely going to be a great fight. I think, their offense can be deadly with that quarterback and wide receiver duel. I think, Joe Mixon get in there and stuff, getting this thing together. They definitely could do their thing, But there's a strong defense who's well mind-sounded, know the game plan, going to get after you up front, can cover on the back end. When you have an all-around defense like that, you got to have an all-complete offense. And I think that's where we get the upper hand at. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to all three phases. How will our special teams do? How will our defense do? And also how will the offense do? As long as everybody come out prepared and clicking on all cylinders, I don't see how we could be slowed down.
Well, it's going to be interesting because Derrick Henry, who hasn't played since October at this point, is expected to play in this game. Jurrell, you've seen him since he was drafted here, the player that he's become. It seemed like he was en route to do something really, really special before that foot injury kind of, did shut him down for the rest of the regular season. How impressed are you with just the player that Derrick has become? Because, being behind DeMarco Murray in those early years, it seemed like legitimate adversity for him that he had to work through, and I think he's done a spectacular job, no?
Definitely. He's done an amazing job. And that's just like you go again, back to the patience. The game's about patience. Waiting your time, knowing when it's time to explode. And, yeah, it's frustrating being a first-round draft pick and not getting the rest you feel you should get. But, he was patient. He kept his mind to the grind. He didn't let it get to his head. He didn't pout about it. He fought through it. And when it was his opportunity, he took advantage of it. And that guy has set records and done unbelievable things. And he kept his mind sane. And that's the biggest thing you can ask for from a young running back as great as him, is keeping his mind sane and keeping his body fresh as possible to go out there and keep putting up numbers. As we know, when Derrick Henry is healthy, he's going to be a problem. So it's great to have him back.
We're getting a lot of we've got the show live stream, so we got a live YouTube chat going. People are tweeting us. The Tennessee Titans would not.
What's up? Tighten up, baby.
Hey, what is your message to Titans fans this weekend, Jurrell? Because I'm getting tweets like the Tennessee Titans would not be where they are this weekend without Jerrell Casey. You are such a foundational piece of where this franchise is and has been, Jurrell. What would you like to say to the fans?
I really appreciate that, but it's not about me. These guys out there putting that work in. These guys is doing it with a whole group of missing pieces, and that's what this game is about. We need y'all to bring y'all juice this week, bring that energy, bring that fire, put some fire under y'all tails, and let's get it going. These guys are ready to roll, and I know they're gonna be at it. They're gonna be hitting guys in the mouth, flying around, and Vrabel's gonna have those guys rolling. So they just make sure everybody bringing that juice. Get the crowd rocking. I want to hear vibrations. I want to feel it underneath my feet. I want to feel that stadium rocking. That's what game playoff environment is about. Let's make sure we bring that to Tennessee.
It's certainly going to be a fantastic environment at Nissan Stadium. A toe tag, body bag celebration before you stick the. Are you doing it before you stick the sword in the ground? What's the form? What's that going to look like?
You know I can't walk off the field without a body bag. I can't walk off the field without a body bag. It's definitely going down.
Hey, Jurrell, it's been a pleasure to chat with you, buddy. I hope you enjoy the game. I'll probably see you out there Saturday, and thanks for stopping by. I know the fans really appreciate it.
Appreciate y'all for having me. Appreciate it.
That's Jerrell Casey, Titans legend, there with us on 104.5 The Zone. Man, it's good to talk to that guy. That's, when you because we did have, we've got a lot of responses on social media about this, and certainly, so Robert Lawrence was the person who sent us that tweet about the Titans not being where they are without Jerrell Casey as a franchise, and that is so, I feel that in my soul. Jurrell, when you talk about the guys who helped keep this thing afloat for all the bad football that there was between, different eras of Titans football, different regimes before you finally got to the place where you have been in the last 4 years under John Robinson and Mike Vrabel, Jerrell Casey was one of those stabilizing forces like we talked about with Ryan Tannehill. So we'll get into the conversation because the phone lines are still loaded. People want to weigh in on the Titans quarterback. We'll do that coming up next. If you want to react to that Jerrell Casey interview, he's always great. I miss having that guy in the locker room, man. Man, I miss being in locker rooms. I haven't been in a locker room in 2 years, Lucas. Isn't that crazy that is?
I think the last time I asked a Titans player a question in a presser was Jerrell Casey.
I mean,
in the locker room.
I miss the transparency from Jurrell. Your phone calls coming up next. We'll get into it. 615-737-1045. That's the number. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Just make money? Not the other part? What are you doing back there? Is this a censored version? Welcome back on 104.5 The Zone. Speaking of making money or rather losing it, Bruce Arians just got fined $50K. Oh, Bruce Arians, I didn't see this. I must have, this is after I guess I turned off that playoff game between the Bucs and the Eagles. He was seen swiping at a Bucs player. I don't know what constitutes swiping. Did he swing on him? Was it open-handed? What did it look like? Andrew Adams saying after the game he was attempting to make sure Adams didn't pull players from the fine. So apparently he threw a bow that caught Andrew Adams. I've never heard of that player. I assume he's a special teams.
One of his players.
Fined $50,000 for that. Tough scene. Going to get to the dumbest thing in sports here in just a second, but the lines are loaded and you guys have been waiting patiently. So let's start with, Darrington has been waiting the longest, so we'll go to him first. What's up, my dude?
I'm going to make this real quick. Like, hey, listen, people, when you call in, this is not a therapy session. Make this stuff quick. I almost went to sleep on some of y'all talking. All that complaining and crying. 15 seconds or better. We ain't got time for this. I don't cut on the radio show and listen to y'all complain. I cut on to listen to Buck give his opinion about stuff, even though he could be wrong. And if you need the weather check, ask Brett Doherty on 3HL. Add him on Twitter, at Brett Doherty. Second of all, people, for the 15 to 16 people that like the tat, y'all need something from the store. Because y'all other trifling folks, quit coming here and not liking it. Simple. Point blank, period. All right, I'm done. Thanks. Have a good one.
That's all. Just a PSA. Okay, Darrington. I thought he was going to give us some Ryan Tannehill smoke. So Darrington is just advising our listeners at this point. All right, let's go to, looks like John in Clarksville is up next on 104.5 The Zone. What's up, John?
Hey, how's it going?
Doing well.
Hey, this is really exciting weekend here, and just my observation on Ryan Tannehill. He seems like he's really more focused. He's really tuned in. I didn't see that in Miami. I think he was all over the place, and that was just not good coaching. I think this coaching staff and Tannehill are a real good match, and that's why I think they'll win it. They're going to go to the Super Bowl, and that defense is there's something else. That's all I got.
I think a lot of good points there, John. The Ryan Tannehill Miami experience, it seems like so far removed. We don't even talk about Tannehill in Miami anymore because it's so night and day difference, right? Adam Gase being a big problem there in Miami, the lack of talent in Miami. They never had an offensive line in front of Tannehill, which is crazy because it's the exact same problem that they've had with Tua and that they had with Ryan Fitzpatrick before that. Like, it's been an outright disaster at the offensive line position. But as far as his focus is concerned, Ryan Tannehill, I think he's been steady all year long. That's like somebody asked him last week in our press conferences with him about, does he feel like he's gotten his mojo back? And he gave a response like, contrary to popular belief, I never felt like I lost it. He's been super steady, stabilizing force is Ryan Tannehill. And I think a lot of the reason for their success and sustained success, despite everything basically burning around them throughout the middle part of the regular season, you can attribute to Ryan Tannehill. And also, as the caller brought up, that pass rush is absolutely nasty. Here was Ryan Tannehill speaking to the media yesterday, talking about Zach Taylor, who he worked with in college at Texas A&M.
I'm so happy for Zach. Just a great guy, a great man, and enjoyed my time with him. He helped me out so much early in my career. My relationship started with him back at A&M. He was helping out with the tight ends, and then obviously my first few years in Miami being the quarterback coach. So spent a lot of time with him. Love him as a man, and he's a heck of a football coach. So really happy with his success. Just hopefully we can come out on top this week.
He said today that he roots for you all year, but obviously not this Saturday. Kind of the same for you?
Yeah, no doubt. Always pulling for Zach. And a lot of those guys on that staff that I have the relationships with, good people, good coaches, so you pull for them as long as it's not against us.
Ryan Tannehill speaking with the media yesterday. You can interact with the show on Zone TV, by the way. Monsoon Monahan writes us on the YouTube chat. Buck, you don't think of Miami Tannehill, but literally everyone else does. It's crazy and not fair. I don't know. Maybe we're just in our own echo chamber here in Nashville, but I feel like we don't talk about Miami Tannehill anymore. Just Titans media doesn't really. Maybe it's something. Maybe you turn on Get Up or First Take or whatever the daytime television programming on the NFL is on that particular day, and maybe that's brought up as part of the conversation, just like the whole wide receiver thing with Tannehill. But I don't feel like we give that much credence because it doesn't really matter here. It's a totally different scenario, totally different situation. We got Levi in Lexington up next. What's up, Levi?
What's going on, Buck?
Well, you know.
Oh, I'll tell you what. If that conversation with Jerrell Casey and that quote yesterday, ride together, die together, bad boys for life, don't get you fired up for this weekend, I don't know what will.
Between Jerrell Casey and Sue Ann, baby, you got a fire lit under your ass, huh?
Hey, that's right. That tells you to tighten up right there. I don't know what else will. But I like Tannehill going forward, with us this season. I don't know. I mean, yeah, you can make anything for another quarterback or that's still in it. But I still like Tannehill. He's great with this offense. But that's all I got. I appreciate your call.
Thanks very much for the call, Levi. 615-737-1045. Just a heads up, we're getting ready to do the dumbest thing in sports here in just a minute if you want to go ahead and get in early on that. His point about Ryan Tannehill and the Titans offense, because, a lot of conversation had around, well, what would Tom Brady be able to do with the Titans? And I would say to you that the Bucs roster and the Titans roster are two completely different night and day things. Now, I think the beauty of what the Bucs did around Tom Brady is, one, they figured out how to make the salary cap just not matter for the years while Brady is on their team because they're going to sell out to win the Super Bowl. Respect. But also, the thing about the Bucs when they won it last year and when they were healthy this year is they have the personnel on offense to win so many different ways. It's not necessarily the case here in Tennessee. You've got one kind of ball that you're going to play. You're going to run the damn ball. You're going to play action pass. You are going to play great to solid to great defense, and that's basically the formula for success. And just don't turn the ball over, or else you're banged, which is the case for most NFL teams. So Titans and Bucs are different in that regard as far as the 8 remaining quarterbacks and how many you would take over Tannehill. I would certainly, if you're just going off talent at that position, regardless of their situation, then yeah, you're going to say the greatest of all time in Brady, the MVP probably again in Aaron Rodgers coming up again this season, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, who are super freaks, but you can't do it that way. You can't do the analysis and say, all right, give me this quarterback regardless of situation, because the situation matters, as you've just seen it play out for Ryan Tannehill here in Tennessee. Go to Darrell or Jurrell, I'm not sure. Either way, he's in Nashville. He's up next. What's up?
What's up, man? It's pronounced Darrell, but
I got you.
I understand what you said about the factors that go into football and all that, but back to the question that was at hand.
Yes.
What quarterback would you take over Ryan Tannehill? To me, Ryan Tannehill is like 7th or 8th. I would tell the 4 with Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes. I would take Joe Burrow. I would take Stafford. He's right there neck and neck with Garoppolo. And going back to the Titans altogether, that's the only thing that's really been holding them back for years, because I've been here watching football for decades. The only thing that's holding the Titans back is they've never had an elite quarterback. McNair was a good quarterback, but he was tough and he did what he needed to do.
Sure.
But other than that, they've had a good running back. They've had great defenses. The only thing that's holding the Titans back from winning a championship, and that is the goal, not to get to the playoff, not to be the number 1 seed, not to have home field advantage. The actual goal is to win a Super Bowl, which the Titans has 0. And that's because they haven't had an elite quarterback. I sit back and I hear your comment.
I appreciate the call. Here's what I'll say, and then we'll get to the dumbest thing in sports this week. By that measure, Josh Allen hasn't won a Super Bowl. When's the last time? Have the Buffalo Bills won a Super Bowl? Lucas, can you look that up for me? I don't know the answer to that question. If they have, I don't think they have.
They have not.
Are you saying that? You're saying that very confidently.
I am saying that confidently without looking it up.
Okay, very good. I know they have been to Super Bowls. I know that they have
Four straight.
Four straight, right. The four falls of Buffalo is a whole 30 for 30. By that logic, you're talking about Mahomes of the 8 quarterbacks, Darrell. You're talking about Mahomes, Brady, and Rodgers. Those are the guys that have won the Super Bowls. So if you're talking about that being the classification, I don't necessarily understand the logic. Now, I understand superior talent. I understand the promise of Joe Burrow. But by that logic, that doesn't make sense to me. There's plenty of franchises. The Buccaneers just got a Super Bowl because they got Tom Brady. There's a lot of different franchises that have suffered without the kind of quarterback play that you're talking about and not won Super Bowls. Does that mean that you would take this quarterback over, or that you would not take this quarterback over any of the other players in the field outside of Jimmy G? Garoppolo's been in a Super Bowl. By your logic, Darrell, Garoppolo should be ahead of Tannehill. So I would say that there's some flaws in that. I understand what he's saying, but I do believe that to be flawed. All right, give me the music. Dumbest thing in sports.
Let's be honest. You've already seen something this week that made you say,
"What the is this?"
That's bullshit.
What the hell? Give me some more now.
Something so mind-numbingly idiotic that you just want to get it off your chest.
Dumber than a second coat of paint.
Some idiot.
You are really dumb. For real. It's the dumbest thing in sports this week on the Buck Reising Show.
Load them up. 615-737-1045. It's a Wednesday. It means it's time for the dumbest thing in sports this week. Who made you sad? Who made you put your head in your hands and just shake uncontrollably? I've got a good nominee. I think the nominee that I'm bringing to the table today, there's a lot of good ones. I imagine Mike McCarthy and the Dallas Cowboys are going to make an appearance. I imagine Dak Prescott is going to make an appearance. I imagine there's going to be a lot of things from this weekend in football that will be, oh, by the way, speaking of the dumbest thing in sports, Will Compton just texted me and said that he's at Scoreboard. I told him tomorrow. This idiot. This idiot. Will Compton's the dumbest thing in sports this week. That's outstanding. 615-737-1045. Will Compton is not going to be my nominee, although that's a good one. That's unfortunate. Make sure you give him a plug there, Will. That's great. We're going to be out at Scoreboard Bar and Grill tomorrow, by the way, doing the show with Will Compton, assuming that he shows up again. We will find out if he's willing to make that trek twice. But come join us if you want to. My dumbest thing in sports this week, it's Darren Rovell. Now, let me set the scene for you before we play this audio. This is a situation. This is a situation for Darren Rovell where he got on social media. Now, I was off on Monday. Otherwise, we would have done this on Monday. Darren Rovell gets on social media and somehow on Martin Luther King Day finds ways to make Martin Luther King Day about Darren Rovell. How? How could this possibly be so? He puts out a tweet that says he's complaining about NIL deals. He's talking about, he's tweeting about the announcement for the Miami Hurricanes. He's saying that in a free market, the day college football players could get money for name, image, and likeness, the day name, image, and likeness became the free market was on Martin Luther King Day. And then he starts to get criticized about this. He goes on to say basically that that Darren Rovell, that he's basically saying players who are generating millions of dollars for a free and equitable labor market in college football, it's wrong. And that on Martin Luther King Day, the idea that this would happen is particularly offensive. So Darren Rovell immediately starts getting dragged through these social media streets for basically accusations of racism. And Darren Rovell logs into a Miami Hurricanes Twitter space. Now, if you don't know, I'm not trying to alienate a part of our audience who doesn't know what a Twitter space is, but if you're unfamiliar, Twitter has a function now where if you have a Twitter profile, you can start a conversation, a space. Whether you're a Titans fan, you can jump in on a Bengals fan's Twitter space. You can argue back and forth. There's no FCC. It's like golden age sports talk radio because I see them all the time after games and they're just purely reactionary. So he jumps in this Miami Hurricanes Twitter space while they're talking about NIL deals, and Darren Rovell wants to defend himself against accusations of racism, when really Darren Rovell is just super selfish and the biggest narcissist in the history of time. Listen to this audio.
Explain it to the fan base so everybody can get on the same page.
Sure, I have over 9 MLK signed items. I am a humongous fan of what he's done, and over the last 7 years, I've collected a lot of things. It's not only MLK; it's a lot of Black history. I own a Rosa Parks signed NAACP card. So it was pretty shocking today how I was called racist when I am a student and lover of Black history, and it was I never expected the reaction that I got today.
Just wait.
I'm sorry if people think that a white man can't enjoy Black history. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I really am. I'm sorry if people think that a white man can't love Martin Luther King. But to me, that seems pretty counterintuitive. You got me?
Yeah. Darren Rovell is out here trying to justify him making Martin Luther King Day about himself by the fact that he's got a signed Rosa Parks NCAA or NC. Damn it! I'm gonna botch the acronym.
NAACP.
NAACP. Thank you.
Yeah, I have more civil rights memorabilia than you. Is an odd flex.
I have more Martin Luther King signed memorabilia. He said at least 9 pieces. Darren Rovell, what the hell are you doing? You're allowed to appreciate Black history and culture. He said, can you play the part for me again where he says, big fan of Martin Luther King? It's a ridiculous statement. I mean, not a ridiculous statement, but just what a weird thing to say. Yeah, big fan of the guy who helped get Black Americans out of oppression or helped start the process of getting Black Americans out of oppression. Yeah, big fan of that guy. I've got my Rosa Parks signed trading card sitting at home in front of me. So you
signed
couldn't
items. I am a humongous fan of what he's done.
It's such a weird thing to say.
Big fan of his work. Like, yeah, us
huge
too,
fan
Darren.
of his work. Yeah, us too. Not a fan of racism, Darren. Thank you for your contribution to society today. Darren Rovell making MLK Day about himself is the dumbest thing in sports this week. Lucas, give me yours, and then we'll get some calls on it.
So I got tagged in this tweet from the Vanderbilt Provost office at @VU_Provost. It's kind of an extension of my dumbest thing in sports from last week, which is, of course, that Vanderbilt not allowing students to attend basketball games in the student section in the name of safety, and then turning around and selling those tickets at a very high price to whatever fan wants to buy them. I was at the game last night, Tennessee's win against Vanderbilt, and the student section was a little bit of black, a little bit of orange, wasn't making a ton of noise, but either way, it wasn't students. I'd say the crowd was about 60-40 in favor of Vanderbilt. It felt a little bit like a neutral atmosphere, which is what you would expect in a Tennessee-Vanderbilt game in Nashville, but they didn't have that extra pop in the student section to kind of push the home court advantage over the edge. It just wasn't really there. This tweet from the VU Provost office: to our incredible Vanderbilt men's basketball and Vanderbilt women's basketball student athletes, coaches, and staff, the Vanderbilt University community is excited to virtually cheer you on during our Commodore Care period, and we look forward to supporting you in person again soon, with a flyer on Twitter celebrating Virtual Fan Week, where you can join Vanderbilt Athletics for a special halftime trivia Zoom on Tuesday night featuring premier season giveaways. So everybody log into the Zoom, watch the game, and let's virtually cheer on our Commodores while Tennessee fans buy up all your tickets for $200 a pop.
Tennessee, that was just terrible basketball again yesterday.
Yeah, it was rough.
God.
It was rough to watch.
God. So bad. All right. 615-737-1045. You've heard our nominees. Mine is Darren Rovell, the preeminent sports business reporter in the country, making Martin Luther King Day about himself because he's got more signed Martin Luther King memorabilia than you do, so he couldn't possibly be racist. And Lucas, the Vanderbilt administration. 615-737-1045. Tell us what the dumbest thing in sports this week is, coming up next. I don't know. I don't think we've lost you just yet. Darren Rovell sure as hell lost me. We're doing the dumbest thing in sports this week. Load them up, 615-737-1045. That's the number. Who you got? Mine is Darren Rovell making Martin Luther King Day about himself. Outstanding. Lucas, the Vanderbilt administration. He was in attendance of Tennessee's win over Vandy yesterday and the ridiculous virtual cheering section that the Commodores administration tried to offer or did offer the Vandy students. Just a terrible, terrible idea. Nathan is in Nashville with the dumbest thing in sports. What you got for me, Nathan?
Yeah, I want to say that my dumbest moment in sports today, this week was Dak Prescott taking out running with 14 seconds left on the clock.
Man, help me understand that, Nathan. I watched that and thought I thought there was something like that I missed on TV. I didn't understand what he was doing.
I have no idea. I'm not a Dallas fan. I used to be a Dallas fan before the Titans came to Tennessee. But, that was just the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
He didn't give him a chance to even, I don't get it. I don't know why. I still can't understand why he did that.
I mean, there's a ton of things I don't understand why Dak did what he did on Sunday. But, talking about with 14 seconds left on the clock, he has the opportunity to get down, to get the ball spotted, to not bleed additional time off the clock and help his football team. Doesn't do that. He gets to the line. He doesn't know the rule about the ball needs to be spotted by the official, so it kills even more time, runs time off the clock at the end while he's desperately trying to spike it. It was an outright embarrassment what Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy did on Sunday with the Dallas Cowboys against the San Francisco 49ers because Jimmy G tried to give him that game. 615-737-1045. What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? 615-737-1045. That's how you chime in. Dak Prescott, by the way, also in the news right now because he had to put out a public apology. I'm looking at this right now on ESPN. He apologized via Twitter yesterday for his post-game comments regarding fans throwing bottles and debris at officials after Sunday's wild card loss. He was asked about this post-game. And he said, one, he was asked about people. They weren't just throwing things at the official. They were throwing things at the Cowboys players. Because, of course, I'm not advocating that people throw things on the field. The Tennessee thing, we've been through it. We've talked about it with, Georgia fans were throwing things on the field before they ended up winning that game in the national. In fact, they were throwing things from, the upper deck. They were straight up launching stuff. Cowboys fans throwing stuff on the field. This happens across sports. And you know what I'm tired of? I'm tired, and I love Brent Doherty. Wool bowling, meh. No, I'm kidding. But every time a Tennessee fan sees people throwing stuff on the field, immediately the tweet. And it's red meat for the fan base.
It's a trigger, isn't it?
It's a trigger.
That, and along with Greg Schiano, there's a long list of triggers for Tennessee fans when they see something on social media.
So, Brent and Will being Vols fans, and they're not the only ones that have done this, but they get on Twitter immediately. I thought Tennessee fans were the only ones to throw things on the field. And then, everybody, it's all the free likes, and people love it. Tennessee fans, they get a bad rap, blah, blah, blah. Just shut up, you're fine.
As a Tennessee alum, I will say the difference was in Knoxville, the game was stopped for 25 minutes.
Yeah, there is that.
It does happen everywhere. I thought the uproar was overblown, but it did stop the game for 20
those
minutes.
tweets kill me. I thought Tennessee fans were the only people that throw stuff on the field. Lucas, what are people saying is the dumbest thing in sports this week?
Olivia says people not thinking that the Titans are going to win the Super Bowl is the dumbest thing in sports this week.
Okay.
Sam says Bengals fans thinking this is the same Titans team as last year. I did see our guy Mike Herndon, formerly of Broadway Sports, retired, not retired Titans analyst.
He's tweeting more than he was writing in retirement. And by the way, he's done 3 straight football and other F words podcasts. Mike is not retired. He's thirsty to get back in on the action.
And tweeting at Bengals fans that are speculating that this is pretty much the same Titans defense as last year, right? Burrow diced them up pretty good. How hard can it be?
Well, Aaron Schatz might agree with them.
If you just take out the injuries and all the new personnel that they have.
And 6 new starters. And
if you take all that stuff out, then by DVOA, they're the worst defense in the history of football.
Do you know that game We don't have the clip of Mike Vrabel talking about that game yesterday, do we? That's short notice for me to ask you. That's not fair because he said basically to make you puke to watch that game back. You know why? Because do you remember who was playing in that game? This was the game. This is when the ultimatum was made. All right? This was the moment. It was a November game. Jonathan Joseph, Titans legend, and Vic Beasley, Titans legend, were starting for the Tennessee Titans at the time, and those two, along with Jadeveon Clowney, looked utterly inept against the Bengals, particularly on third down. Listen to Mike Vrabel talk about that Bengals game last year.
Enough to make you puke. I mean, we could watch it, but it wasn't very good. I mean, we just, we have to be better in all three phases. But I think you look at it. I mean, you have to watch conceptually. I think it's, there's some similarities. Things that we'll have to do much, much better.
Mike Vrabel, the film from the Bengals game last year, enough to make you puke.
Oh, God. It's enough to make you puke. I mean, we could watch it.
Oh, God. He said
PTSD.
Yeah, he felt the same way you did. All right. When we come back, I'm going to tell you why the Titans analysis of it being a small media market, that's why they're not getting enough love on national television. I'm going to tell you why that's flat out wrong. Coming up next. Hour number 3 on this Wednesday. Welcome back to 104.5 The Zone. Buck Reising here with you until 1 o'clock, getting you a little bit closer. It feels like we're just all counting down the minutes, the seconds, the days, the hours, whatever unit of time you want to use until we can all get out to Nissan Stadium on Saturday and see this game between the Titans and the Bengals. 615-737-1045. You can jump in on the conversation if you would like. 615-737-1045. Got Bengals radio analyst Dave Lapham, longtime offensive lineman for Cincinnati, longtime radio analyst, their version of Coach Dave McGinnis. He's going to join us to break down this game coming up next. Really looking forward to have him on the show. He's got great analysis. And by the way, their call of the interception by Jermaine Pratt to end that game against Las Vegas on Saturday was about as good as I've heard from anybody in local radio. But I wanted to kind of start here with an interesting article that I saw from Axios this morning. And it was talking about the 4 AFC teams that are still alive in the playoffs represent a victory for Sports Universal Underdog. Now, you may hear that and say, well, what is an underdog about Patrick Mahomes and Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs? Not last year, obviously, but in their history. What is an underdog about Josh Allen, who's probably the most talented quarterback, which is crazy because Mahomes is a freak too. But what is there to label Josh Allen in Buffalo as an underdog after they just smoked the evil empire of Bill Belichick and the Patriots this past wild card weekend? And what the article goes on to say, and this is from Kendall Baker of Axios, where I'm getting this article, the 4 AFC teams, he writes, still alive in the playoffs represent a victory for Sports Universal Underdog. That's the small market team. Now, that's pretty interesting, right? So where do the Titans, the Chiefs, the Bengals, and the Bills all rank as far as market size are concerned? Because we talk about this all the time, right? We got calls about it yesterday with why don't people talk about the Titans more? I was doing A to Z Sports Instagram, the Titans Q&A that I do on their Instagram story every Tuesday. And I was getting questions, why do people hate the Titans? Why don't people want to talk about the Titans? And on and on and on it goes. It even came up with Mike Giardi of the NFL Network yesterday, where we're taking those calls. I'm trying to tell people, well, you can't outright dismiss national media coverage of your football team because there are several people who study this stuff, who understand what your roster has been through, who understand the things that Mike Vrabel has done to kind of earn this candidacy for NFL Coach of the Year, what Ryan Tannehill has done to stabilize him, how good Jeffrey Simmons has been, and on, you can go through the list of things. But they don't get talked about, right? I turned on, we've got SportsCenter on, we've got First Take on throughout the course of the show while I'm on from 10 to 1. And 95% of the topics are, what does the Cowboys offseason look like? What is going on with Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills, like Aaron Rodgers and an MVP candidacy back-to-back years, on it goes. And the Titans are in the D block. And you would look at that and say, what the hell is this? This is the number 1 team. This is the top seed in the AFC. And they are just utterly disrespected in ways that deeply confuse me. Even when you get down to something like as simple and as trivial as, for example, Pro Bowl voting, right? And we'll talk about this with Dave Lapham. He played offensive line for so many years in Cincinnati. I'd be curious to get his opinion on Big Jeff and that Titans front. But something as simple as Pro Bowl voting. How the hell could Jeff Simmons not be a Pro Bowler? He's an alternate, fine, whatever. But how could Jeff Simmons, in the eyes of his colleagues and coaches around the league, how could Jeff not qualify as a Pro Bowler when there's only one interior defensive lineman that's more consistently disruptive than he is and that's Aaron Donald with the Los Angeles Rams. So all of this stuff kind of swirls together, and then I see this article from Axios where the Titans, of the 4 remaining NFL teams, they're the largest market of the 4 remaining NFL teams. Titans are the 25th biggest NFL market from the 32 teams, okay? Titans at 1.1 million. Number of homes in each team's market as of this last, 2020 to 2021. So Titans are the 25th biggest, Chiefs 26th, Bengals 27th, and then you have the Bills, 32 out of 32. So for all the idea that small market means less coverage and that's why Titans fans should have to eat it, it's just flat out not correct, especially when you look at the 4 teams remaining. So what are we missing here? What context am I not understanding? Now, the difference between the Titans and those 3 other AFC teams, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, legitimate stars at the quarterback position. And then you have Ryan Tannehill, who we spent a lot of time talking about yesterday, who I think has a ton to prove to this fan base in the postseason upcoming. However it goes, there are going to be a lot of judgments made about Ryan Tannehill based on how their postseason goes, whether it's a win or a loss against the Bengals. However far the run goes in this postseason, there are going to be a lot of definitive statements made about the Titans quarterback. But here's what I know. He's not as big a star as the other 3. And what's the most important position? What's the most star-driven, star-powered position? Well, that's the quarterback. So if all you're telling me is that people are more interested in Mahomes, Burrow, and Josh Allen as opposed to Ryan Tannehill, and that's why the other 3 are splattered across the coverage going alongside Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. You look at the rest of the NFC bracket, you've got the Los Angeles Rams milling about in there as well. The situation for that football team being Tennessee, it just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me at all. But the intriguing part of this is Bills, Bengals, Chiefs, Titans, they form the smallest average media market. Again, this from the Axios article. Smallest average media market size of any conference's Final 4 since the 1970 AFL-NFL merger. Their franchise valuations are similarly low. So when you talk about the value of franchise, Bengals are 32nd. They're the least valuable NFL franchise. Bills 30th, Titans 28th, and Chiefs 20th. So with all that being said, because I get a lot of questions, why are they colluding against the Titans? No collusion, right? If you're a fan of that FX show, The League, a couple of years ago. And I don't know that it's outright collusion, but here's what I'll tell you outright, because you guys know this. We have a ton of friends that we bring onto the radio show from various networks, whether it's, somebody like Charles Davis from CBS, whether it's Diana Rossini or Mina Kimes or Mike Golick Jr. from ESPN, whether it's Giardi or Cam Wolfe from the NFL Network. What I know is that the worst case scenario for a Super Bowl, as far as the television network side of things is concerned, I believe NBC has the game this year. Worst case scenario, Titans 49ers. Do you know why? Because they don't have the star quarterback power.
When we come back, Titans running back Derrick Henry will hit the podium and speak to the media for the first time since his injury in Indianapolis on Halloween. It's the Buck Reising Show on 104.5 The Zone.
Let me tell you about my friends at Golden Oak Lending. It's a completely different mortgage experience than any other company that you've dealt with. And you know that if you've gone through the home buying process or even the process of refinancing, that there's a bunch of lingo, a bunch of terminology, a lot of numbers that are being thrown in your face. And it's really easy to get caught up in things that you don't necessarily understand. Well, the difference with Golden Oak Lending is they are going to have a personal loan officer, a personal local loan officer assigned to you to walk you through each and every step of the process. Not going to be passed off to somebody on a 1-800 number that's not in Nashville, not in Middle Tennessee. They're going to be state licensed. They're going to have unique knowledge of our area, which is critical if you're trying to maximize your value and maximize exactly what you should be getting as far as the lowest possible rates are concerned. Golden Oak Lending also makes their lowest possible rates public. 1.875% fixed is what they put out there, and not every company does that. James Hawkins, the president of Golden Oak Lending, and Sean Curtis, they've walked me through exactly what these differences are from all the different kind of mortgage companies and lending companies that you'll deal with. The Golden Oak Lending is the difference. So give them a visit at goldenoaklending.com, and you'll be happy that you did. That was Bengals radio on the call of Jermaine Pratt's interception to seal their wild card weekend win over the Las Vegas Raiders. Dave Lapham, longtime Bengals radio analyst, joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. Dave, it looked like a lot of fun in Cincinnati on Saturday night.
It was. It was the biggest crowd ever at Paul Brown Stadium, and they were in full throat. They were celebratory. It had been a long time, 31 years to be exact. So they were very, very pleased about that, and they didn't leave right away. They stayed in that stadium for a good while after that football game, soaking it all in.
For somebody like you who's, obviously played for the Bengals and seen so much of this franchise, kind of their growth and the highs and lows, what did that kind of mean to you as somebody who's been for so long associated with this franchise?
Well, it gave confirmation in my mind that it is all about the quarterback. We had good runs in the 80s.
We step away from this to bring you Titans running back Derrick Henry at the podium for the first time since October 28th over at St. Thomas Sports Park.
And have my support system, and happy to be back.
How did it feel being back on the practice field, and maybe what's your excitement level moving forward?
Yeah, you definitely appreciate this game a lot more when you're away from it, being away from your teammates, just having that camaraderie, and going to work every day and going out to play on Sundays each and every week. Definitely miss that, and just happy to be back. Appreciative of everybody that helped me get to be able to come back and contribute during the playoffs, and I'm just happy to be back playing football.
How did you feel after getting that extra contact in practice yesterday?
Say it again?
The extra contact that you got in practice yesterday, how did you respond to that? How do you feel after that?
Oh, yeah, I felt great. Just want to get some pads on. Haven't had them on in a while and get some contact going in. I appreciate those guys coming over to help me do that, and, definitely felt good.
What was maybe the toughest part of, this whole rehab return to play process, and maybe what helped you get through that?
No, I love football. It's all I've done since I was 5 years old, and, it's what I fell in love with. And, it's just the first time something like this has happened. And, just adversity, and you just got to overcome it. And thankful for the trainers, my girlfriend who was driving me here 5 weeks straight when I couldn't drive. And, everybody that, supported me, Titans fans wrote get well letters. I definitely appreciate that. And, just having faith in the man above, and, just continue to rehab, continue to get healthy, and, being able to have this opportunity right here.
Pretty much indestructible, Derrick, for the first several years. The fact that this injury has something to do with wear and tear a little bit too, is that cause for concern looking forward in terms of the the amount of carries and so forth, and the load that you can deal with going forward?
No, I don't think you worry about that. It's football. It's a game of injuries. Injuries happen, and you just gotta keep pushing forward. And everything happened for a reason. I don't try to get into all the what ifs and this and that and this. Just focus on the right now, and appreciate the journey, and that's all I can do.
Like you can pick between your feet right now in terms of cutting right, cutting left, planting. How close are you to the same on each side?
I feel good. I have a big steel plate on my foot. That's only different from the left foot to the right. But I feel good. Just I haven't did anything like 2.5 months. So just getting back out there, getting acclimated to everything, and getting back to being me.
You think you can kind of pick up where you left off? You haven't played the preseason a lot, so I know people talk about rust. Do you feel like you can kind of step back in and be the Derrick you were at the start of the season?
Well, it all starts out here in the practice field, and doing everything I can to be ready for Saturday, and that's where it starts. Just trying to work hard, trying to do the best I can to be the best player I can be for this team, and try to contribute as best as I can. But the work starts out here like it always does.
How impressed have you been with the job that they've been able to do without you, Derrick, to get to this point, to get the number 1 seed?
Oh, I was definitely the biggest cheerleader. It was fun watching them. While I was why I missed playing with him, but did a great job. Guys stepped in, guys who were hungry did a great job running the ball, and overall as a team they did a great job as well. And for us to have number 1 seed, get a bye week, and then come into the division round against a good opponent.
Where are you there? Because I know that's a big part of that recovery process from the injury.
Back playing football, that's all it is.
You feel like you'd be ready for a heavy workload on Saturday?
We ain't gonna get into all that, but whatever I can do to help, I'm always for it.
What do you think of the Bengals on defense, and what kind of challenge do they present? They've been good against the run this year.
Yeah, they did a great job this whole year, and watching them against the Raiders, I feel like they did a great job. I know they got a couple guys that went down, but overall, they're physical, penetrators, linebackers. They play very well, experience in the back end. They do a great job blitzing, fast, try to get the ball out, and got a great experience. A lot of guys who played together for a couple of years, so we got our hands full and got to prepare for them this week.
Do you think there's something taking the first hit on it in a game?
All these questions. I mean, I'm not really focused on that. I'm just ready to go out there and play. If you sit there and focus on all that, then you're not going to be yourself.
Advantage, Derrick, to maybe having fresh legs, not having played, not having had wear and tear for the last 3 months. Is there a benefit to that going up against, maybe guys who've been playing week after week?
I would think anybody who hasn't played in 2 months will, feel pretty good about their body and where they're at. So.
Derrick, you mentioned the adversity you've been going through these last several months. How difficult was that mentally for you? I know you said it was fun watching the Titans play and do so well, but also how difficult was that watching your team and being away from your organization?
It's always hard when, you go down with an injury and, the season's still going on and you love football, you want to play, but, you just got to work through it. It's always going to be tough times, when something like that happens, but, what don't break you makes you. So that's the mindset I had, is just continue to rehab, get better, do the best I can to get back on the field.
You also mentioned your support system, how grateful you were to them and for everyone that kind of supported you through these last couple of months. How often did your teammates reach out to you, and how much did you feel that support from your team?
Oh, yeah, they reached out to me every day. Whoever it was that texted me before each game and just checking up on me, I definitely appreciated that. And, my teammates are like family, so I definitely appreciated it and was rooting for them while I was trying to get back.
Did you get a lot of letters? You mentioned letters from fans. Did you get a lot of support mail, and did you read a lot of it?
Yeah, I got a pretty good bit of them, and I definitely appreciate it for them taking the time out to send love and send get well wishes. Got some of the best fans in the league, and definitely, it was heartfelt messages, and I definitely appreciate it.
What was it like there? Back when it first happened, like you said, you've really had no injuries. How kind of shocking was it not only to learn you'd been hurt, but that you might be out for such an extended period of time?
Yeah, it was definitely shocking. Like I said, this has never happened to me my whole career, so it was just, I was like, well, can't do nothing about it now. Try to get surgery and start the recovery process. Try to get back as quick as I can.
So you expect to play on Saturday?
Do I expect to play? See how this week goes, and we'll see where I'm at on Saturday.
How about the opportunity that this team has, being the number 1 seed, with an opportunity to do something that's never been done around here? How much are you guys looking to hopefully take advantage of that opportunity?
Yeah, we definitely know it starts out here, and continue to get better on all 3 phases, compete, and then get ready for Saturday. But we have a big opportunity in front of us, and we want to make sure we stay focused every day in the meetings, in the practice field, and then let it lead to Saturday.
That last year, when you had a home game chance, how much did that sit with you at the end of that promising season?
Yeah, not really try to focus on too much of last year. That's in the past, but we came up short last year, and definitely want to do the right things this year so that doesn't happen.
That was Titans running back Derrick Henry speaking for the first time since his injury in late October. Take you back to Buck Reising's conversation with Bengals radio analyst Dave Lapham.
Boomer Esiason was regular season MVP for the Bengals when they played in the Super Bowl 23 in the 88-89 season. And Joe Burrow is playing at a MVP level, even though he didn't get MVP. He probably won't get MVP. He's playing at an MVP level, particularly down the stretch, the last month of the season. He was as good as anybody. So in this quarterback-driven league, if you've got a hot quarterback and the team can climb on his shoulders, he can take them a good way.
He's so much fun to watch, Joe Burrow. From the time that the Titans saw him last year in 2020 in his rookie season, and he really gave them the business when that team didn't feel like they should be able to knock off the Titans in that moment. He was spectacular on third down. He's been so good under pressure this year, Dave. What kind of stands out about the way that this quarterback is able to evade and elude and still deliver the ball down the field?
Yeah, I think that you've hit on something that people kind of take for granted. They make comparisons to Tom Brady, and I can compare him that way from the neck up, and Joe Montana. But Montana had more ability. He was more elusive, evasive than Tom Brady. Tom Brady's a statue, and Tom Brady's not somebody that can extend and create plays. One of the most famous plays in 49er history, the pass that he threw to Dwight Clark to beat the Dallas Cowboys. It was almost like the pass that, Joe Burrow threw right before he jumped out of bounds and completed the ball to Tyler Boyd. That was a big touchdown, in the playoff game against the Raiders. These guys, I compare him more to Joe Montana because he's got that athletic ability to make people miss in a short space. He's got some short space quickness to him. This guy was an all-state point guard in high school. And, he played every sport. His best sport was baseball. And he's just one of those guys. He's got supreme athleticism. And with that said, he's got a tremendous mind for football. I mean, he understands every nuance of his offense and every nuance of what defenses are trying to do to take away his offense, even more importantly. So he's the total package. I mean, he's a very unique, very special football player. And the other thing about him is his preparation. The protocols as such that he goes through for his preparation are second to none. He's one of those guys that's the first in the building, the last to leave. So every other teammate's saying, man, look what Joe's doing. I better up the ante a little bit. If Joe, as great as he is, if Joe's working and prepping this hard, I better step it up.
They certainly have stepped it up. Bengals radio analyst Dave Lapham is here with us, breaking down this divisional round game on 104.5 The Zone. From the standpoint, Dave, of their offense, it's so explosive. A fantastic collection of skill position players when you look at Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. Of course, Jamar Chase has been an absolute revelation at the wide receiver position, and C.J. Uzomah at the tight end. Joe Mixon held down against the Raiders, but certainly still poses a threat. Once they got in the red zone against the Raiders, though, Dave, things seemed to kind of peter out. And I wonder, from your standpoint, what were you kind of seeing? Was it just the Raiders being, keeping things in front of them, squaring up and making tackles when it mattered, or what kind of stood out to you in the red zone?
Yeah, when I asked about that after the game, Zach Taylor said it was me. It's me. He said, I never got a rhythm in the red zone. I didn't make calls I should have made. I take full responsibility. We're better than that. I got to get calls into players that will accentuate their talents and let us do what we do in the red zone. And boy, the first half of the season, they were like in the top 3 in the NFL in red zone touchdown percentage conversion.
Right.
But there's been some steady decline. They've fallen to the middle of the pack once the regular season ended. And then to start 2 for 5 in the red zone, was a little bit of a frustration, obviously. But the difference was the Bengals defense held the Raiders to 1 for 5 in the red zone. And people, that doesn't get as much play because, you look at people emphasize failure more than success, I guess. That's just a society thing. But boy, that won them the football game. And the big interception by Pratt to one of the biggest plays now in Bengals franchise history, that interception to break that streak of 31 years of not winning a playoff game occurred in the red zone. And, you hold a team to no points in the red zone. can't do any better than that.
Societal points being made with Dave Lapham. Listen, I do sports talk radio, Dave, and failure comes up a hell of a lot more than success, but it is a good point that you bring up. So from that standpoint, because obviously I'm watching this on television, Dave, and the call that saw the Jerome Boger crew basically be removed from postseason officiating, it took Drew Brees and Mike Tirico, as good as they are in the booth, took them a minute to kind of figure out what was going on. What did you guys see? Did you hear the whistle in real time on that touchdown that technically by rule shouldn't have counted?
Never did hear a whistle. Didn't know what was going on. Didn't know a whistle had blown. That's why I thought all they were doing was reviewing to see if Joe Burrow indeed was in bounds when he delivered the football. And to me, it was very obvious. And I'm like, what's going on with this big delay? Didn't know that there had been a whistle blown. And, obviously that was a big deal. There's no question about it. But I think that they got eliminated from advancing in the playoffs. This officiating crew, that play was the icing on the cake. They had a rough day all around. I mean, there were more zebra conferences than I've ever seen. And the only game that's being televised by the National Football League is this one. All eyes in the country are watching Jerome Boger and his crew just fumble play after play after play. That's the big reason in my mind. I mean, they interrupted every bit of momentum and rhythm that football game was trying to generate. It was horrible. It really was. And it was a black eye. And I don't think, the NFL, they certainly don't want that in the bigger games. Once you get to the playoffs, crews are chosen based on their performance, how they get graded, and they'll mix and match them. They'll take the best referee, the best line judge, the best umpire, the best side judge. They don't work together all during the week. So, every week of the season. So that's an issue, I think, a little bit. So they're going to have to come up with something.
Especially now that gambling money's involved. They can't have the officiating affecting the impact or the results of the game quite that way. Dave Lapham, Bengals radio analyst, our guest here on 104.5 The Zone. So this defense, Dave, it's going to be out without Larry Ogunjobi. Really unfortunate because he's been such a stud player on that defensive line for Cincinnati throughout the course of the year. But it does look like with Trey Hendrickson limited in practice yesterday after dealing with a concussion that he does have a pretty good chance to go. What's been the story of this Bengals defense this year, and how much has the signing in free agency of Trey Hendrickson kind of helped reshape that group?
It's been massive. I mean, it started 2 years ago. DJ Reader was the first signing in the offseason 2 years ago. They paid him a ton of money to play the nose tackle, and he's played it as well as anybody in the National Football League. And Larry Ogunjobi came from the Cleveland Browns on a one-year deal, and he believing in himself and had a great year. And then unfortunately it ends with this foot injury where he's on IR. But like you said, get Trey Hendrickson from the Saints. They get Mike Hilton, slot corner from the Steelers, Eli Apple from the Giants, Awuzie from Dallas, Von Bell from the Saints. I mean, they basically redid their offense through the draft and redid their defense through free agency.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing. And I think honestly, when you have a quarterback that showed the potential that Joe Burrow showed, when you're out there in the free agency market, that's a selling point. It's like, hey, we're turning this thing around. We have a young guy that's going to lead us to the promised land. We really need to rebuild our defense. You want to be part of the era that turned it around. Why don't you come to Cincinnati and be part of that thing? And these guys all did, and they bonded very quickly on both sides of the football. And that locker room is a special one. Which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Does it come with team chemistry and culture? Is that first, or the wins come first? It's a lot easier to establish chemistry and culture when you're winning. But then to win, you have to establish chemistry and culture. And which one happens first? I think they're simultaneous. I really do.
No, it's a good point that you bring up, and certainly having a franchise quarterback in tow and the way that he's rebounded off that torn ACL and MCL in his rookie season has been spectacular. I want to get your opinion, though, Dave, of the Tennessee Titans, because the quarterback situation here has been substantially improved over the past 3 years since they benched Marcus Mariota and inserted Ryan Tannehill into the lineup. This season has been plagued with injuries. 91 different players have dressed for the Tennessee Titans, and Ryan Tannehill's performance, it feels like, I don't know how much, just as somebody who's, a reporter as opposed to an analyst or somebody who played the game at this level, when I watch Ryan Tannehill and the highs and lows of this season, I want to give him more credit just because of the way that things around him have kind of fallen apart. What do you see when you watch Tannehill?
Yeah, I mean, I think that stabilizing influence that Tannehill provided was massive. I agree with you. The first time I saw Ryan Tannehill, I was doing Big 12 games with Fox, and he was a wide receiver.
Yeah.
And Zach Taylor was a graduate assistant on that staff working for his father-in-law, Mike Sherman. He was the head coach at Texas A&M. And they were together for 4 years at Texas A&M and then together for 3 years or 4 years at the Miami Dolphins. So Zach Taylor and Ryan Tannehill have a very acute understanding of each other. And 2 games before the game that we did, they were playing Arkansas State. He was the third-string quarterback, and they're going to play receiver in this game. He goes on to be a conference caliber. He was named all-conference at the wide receiver position. So I'm thinking this dude is an athlete now, and he is. He's a spectacular athlete. But quite honestly, I mean, if I'm a Bengal and I'm thinking, all right, well, do I want to go to Kansas City? Do I want to go to Buffalo? I don't know, Mahomes, Allen. I'd rather go to Tennessee with Tannehill. But careful what you wish for, because this guy's athletic and he can win games for you too. I mean, the thing that stunned me is 7 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy can hurt you with his feet. That's tied for 14th in the NFL. Never mind quarterback in the whole league. So, he can hurt you on the nakeds, on the boots. He can throw it. He can run it. I have a lot of respect for Ryan Tannehill. I think he's a guy that unbelievably super smart. He's a med school guy, so he'd miss every Wednesday practice when he was at Texas A&M because of the academics. And he never went to the wide receiver meeting room when he was playing wide receiver. He went to the quarterback room and never missed an assignment. He's smart, man. He gets it. He understands everything about football. He's great with people. He's got great people skills, forms relationships. I mean, he's a guy to have in your organization. There's no question.
Those 7 rushing touchdowns tied a career high from last year. Of course, the difference between 2020 and 2021 is the passing touchdowns for Ryan Tannehill, given the injuries at wide receiver and kind of the discombobulation that roster has been throughout the course of the season. A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, possibly, if not likely, Derrick Henry on Saturday for the first time since October. Dave, this offense is interesting because I don't know that we've quite seen it reach the heights that it was built to reach this offseason. But, it almost seems weird and probably blasphemous for my audience to say that the Titans haven't necessarily needed Derrick Henry because the run game has been pretty effective with Deontay Foreman and Dontrell Hilliard once those 2 guys settled in. The way that Tennessee runs their offense, run heavy, of course, play action pass predicated, how would you attack this Titans offense if you were the Bengals defense?
Boy, and you have a situation where, like you said, Ogunjobi, is down to injury. They lost Mike Daniels with a hamstring injury at defensive tackle. So just when you need extra defensive linemen, you're short. So that matchup, I think, is going to be a critical one for this football game. Will other guys step up? Will it be next man up in terms of the defensive line? Because that's where it all starts. It all starts in the trenches. And, I mean, when I look at this Titans offense, A.J. Brown, 220 pounds. Julio Jones, 220 pounds. Got a running back that's pushing 250 and can run people over and run away from them both. And what is it about this franchise that gets these Heisman Trophy genetic freaks? Earl Campbell, Eddie George, this guy. I mean, that's 3 generational running backs that have all gone through this organization. It's amazing. Then you look at Lewan and Saffold, 2 Pro Bowlers, big physical guys. This football team is flat out physical. And that's what you have to do. The thing that when I throw on tape with the Tennessee Titans, you got to put your big boy pads on because those dudes have big boy pads and they use them, man. It is a physical group. And, to me, whoever the running back is, and I do admire the Titans and Mike Vrabel for sticking to their guns. And our philosophy is we run the football. We're a play action pass team, and we'll run some boots and we'll run some nakeds, and we'll make you respect that part of it to keep you, trying to defend the whole width of the football field as well. I mean, I'm telling you, they've got a hell of a package, and they got great people executing it. It's going to be a major league challenge. There's no question about it. But a guy like if depending on how many carries King Henry gets, if you let him get ahead of steam, you're in deep trouble. If you make him make his first cut at the line of scrimmage or even behind the line of scrimmage, you got a shot. But if he passes through the line of scrimmage full speed with his shoulder pad squared up, nightmare. I mean, then you got DBs making business decisions. Do I want to hit this big beast? And they get him on the perimeter. They have a great screen game as well.
Yeah.
You get Derrick Henry on the perimeter with a screen, running against smaller DBs. Whoa, baby! I mean, that is a huge mismatch. So I really like their offensive scheme, their offensive philosophy, and the players they've drafted and developed to execute it. I think Todd Downing has picked the ball up as an offensive coordinator and run with it.
That is Bengals radio analyst Dave Lapham. When we come back, the polls to close out the Buck Reising Show on 104.5 The Zone.
Final segment here on 104.5 The Zone. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us all day long. If you missed any of the great interviews, if you missed Jerrell Casey, if you missed Dave Lapham, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. It's just the Buck Reising Show, wherever it is that you get your podcast. 5 stars would be greatly appreciated as far as the ratings are concerned. Now, I'm going to head out to practice after this, and I'm going to see everything there is to see from Derrick Henry and kind of the progress that he's making as they get closer to their decision to activate him. But in the meantime, we got polls to do.
I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. Because the polls have closed and the votes have been tallied, it's time for a poll update. And he's a good boy. Buck Reising Show producer and correspondent, Lucas Panzica.
What is the dumbest thing in sports this week? Puka says the Cowboys, especially teams wanting to hire Kellen Moore, but from the Mad Rush, the way they played after Jimmy G, Dak at the presser, and the fans. Dumbest thing in sports are the Cowboys wildly gesturing to the franchise in Big D.
Dak Prescott had to put out an apology because he said something about, good on the fans for throwing garbage at the refs as they were walking off. No, the dumbest thing in sports, and it's by a mile. It's January 19th, and this may trump all dumbest things in sports for the remainder of the calendar year. Darren Rovell making Martin Luther King Day about himself is by far and away the dumbest thing in sports. You cannot justify it to me, Darren, by going in a Miami Hurricanes Twitter space and saying, big fan of MLK. Yes, you're a big fan of equality. Congratulations to you, Darren Rovell.
Darren and Eldon both say Bengals fans. I think there's been some jawing back and forth between Bengals and Titans fans recently. Russell says the driven story that Fulton and Chase have familiarity with each other since they played together at LSU and how somehow that might give one of them a competitive advantage.
It is interesting to kind of look through that. And the Bengals fan smoke, I think it's honestly been pretty respectful for the most part. Bengals, bless their hearts, as we say. They don't necessarily know how to handle success for the last 30 plus years. So if they want to get a little chippy, I respect it. You heard Dave Lapham say that Joe Burrow deserved to be an MVP candidate. I would probably dispute that notion, although I think he is good. But I think for the most part, these have been respectful conversations.
This not so respectful. What's the worst thing you'd be willing to do for playoff tickets? I'm just trying to sort through the ones I can even read.
I was about to say, what is FCC safe? This was a risky
Mindy
proposition.
Says suffer through 2 and 3 win seasons with opposing fans completely taking over and drinking all of the beer.
Well, that's a real thing that happens. So now, congratulations to you.
TGF says I would activate Butler off IR in the playoffs.
Jonathan Schaefer somewhere is smiling with the idea of Malcolm Butler being activated. I hope Malcolm Butler is enjoying his retirement, although I did probably better than suffering the embarrassment that the Arizona Cardinals did on Monday night.
Drew says the worst thing he would do for a playoff ticket is pay the prices they've listed online with a crying emoji.
If I was a Titans fan, I don't know what I would be willing to do. My deep, dirty, dark secret is that I've never actually paid for an NFL ticket, so I have no opinion on this from on high in my ivory tower.
Are national media slights in the eyes of Titans fans real or imaginative? 77% say they are real.
Did you say imaginative?
Yes.
I don't think that's the proper grammar.
That imaginative is 100% a word.
Imagined. Real or imagined?
Imaginative.
I think you put that out for my Twitter account?
I sure did.
Damn you. They are real. They are very real. You heard the article that we talked about at the top of this hour. Titans are the biggest remaining media market of the 4 AFC teams. 25th is Nashville, 26th is Kansas City, 27th is Cincinnati, and 32 out of 32 is Buffalo. Don't tell me small market teams is why you're not talking about Tennessee.
Definition of imaginative, relating to or characterized by imagination.
Boo. I'm going to start making you do Urban Dictionary readings.
Which broadcast of 49ers versus Cowboys did you watch? CBS or Nickelodeon? 77% say CBS. Football and other F words reply CBS. Heathens. Every last one of them. I am part of the 23% that watched the Nickelodeon broadcast for the majority of the game.
I liked the Nickelodeon broadcast. I thought that the CBS broadcast was good because to understand exactly what the hell Mike McCarthy was doing wrong, I thought Tony Romo was really, really sharp on that, and the criticisms of Dak Prescott for flat out not knowing the rules. But those are the polls. That'll do it for us today. Tomorrow, live at Scoreboard Bar and Grill. Come join us. Will Compton will be there with me. Mina Kimes is going to be on the show at 11:30. Talk to you guys tomorrow on 104.5 The Zone.